Hello everyone and welcome here to the Daily Quest episode number 45. It is totally lying to you. I didn't update that graphic because there's a lot happening and I apologize. 45, we're talking about Cho'Gall. Cho'Gall, a hero that just saw a big buff, so we're not even going to go through a talent run through today really all that much. We're really just going to talk about Cho'Gall when it comes to drafting, and something that's really interesting because of how unique this hero is when it comes to drafting. We saw him played in the North America Open in this past weekend, and, it saw mixed results. But in this patch, Cho'Gall, the patch just went live like an hour ago, Cho'Gall did receive some pretty significant buffs, so definitely could be a little bit more viable of a hero. Before we get rolling, a big shout out to Peck the Mage for the new logo that we have for the Daily Quest. Huge shout out, my friend. Thanks so much for your work. I love the logo. It is absolutely kawaii, boys. All right, so very quickly, this is what we're going to be looking at in this game. We're looking at one replay, a bit of a shorter daily quest, and this is the builds that we saw out of Cho'Gall if you would like to replicate it. Now, again, you can't really replicate it because Cho'Gall has some changes made to him. And there's some talent moves, some talent upgrades, some changes like that in this patch, which is why we're not really doing a full discussion. But that's roughly what we're going to be looking at here. Relatively sustained Cho, that warrior in the front line, and then a very DPS heavy Gall, which is what you'd expect, but more on the AoE side of things with Twisting Nether. And they really utilize upheaval quite nicely in this game. Of course, that logo looks so fine in the center of the screen. Now, like I was saying, I really want to talk about Cho'Gall when it comes to drafting. And we saw some really interesting drafts and some really interesting ways to utilize Cho'Gall as a hero. Now, the thing is you can't first pick Cho'Gall. If you get first pick, you can't do it. You can only pick Cho'Gall when you lock in Cho and Gall. It's two heroes in one. This is, a unique thing to Heroes of the Storm. It's never been a thing for another MOBA. So you're already spending 2 slots to pick up this hero, but doing that in the middle of the draft, there's a lot of really strong counters that exist for Cho'Gall. Cho'Gall has a very high health pool. It's 2 heroes in one with 1 health pool. So things like Giant Killer are really powerful against Cho'Gall, and 7-sided Strike and Karazim really stands out as a devastatingly powerful ability against Cho'Gall as well. But what we essentially saw is we saw a really early Medic pick in the draft. And Medic's a hero that we don't necessarily see picked up early. I mean, she's not a bad hero, but there's a lot of counterplay that exists to Medic, like Thrall with Sundering is very good, Sonya diving in is very good. Just heroes that can really close that gap and quickly blow her up tend to be the biggest weakness for a hero like Medic. But they open up the draft with Medic, and they really just kind of leave their options open. It looks like, all right, they could go with a warrior and then one of these other two, maybe another warrior or maybe an assassin. I wasn't really too sure of what to expect. But as you can see, they opened Medic Zagara, and then they also had Vala before the ban phase. So they had those 3 heroes. And then for their last pick, they went Cho and Gall. And this was definitely a bit of a surprise. Why is it so loud? Patch. No. Too loud. Too loud. That's a little bit better. The enemy team really wasn't thinking about this, and that they have the good response to Medic. They did go for Thrall. Thrall is one of the best responses in the entire game when it comes to dealing with a Medic because of just sundering with flanks and then going in and blowing her up quickly. So they drafted well in response to Medic, but I don't think they were expecting the Cho'Gall. The Cho'Gall pickup certainly caught them off guard. I don't know why my UI is the incorrect one. We're just going to kind of run with it, but the top of the screen looks a little funky, and I apologize for that, but for some reason this new patch has made it so that the Observer UI, it's not using the new one. I don't know if it's supposed to be Blizzard or default. I actually don't know. Because Blizzard did release a new Observer UI with today's patch. So we're just going to fast forward a little bit. Now, Cho'Gall, as a hero, really excels at pushing out lanes, right? I mean, he's got some of the most poke in the entire game, and that's something you really want to take advantage of as often as possible without overcommitting. Here on Tomb of the Spider Queen, you can see every time the cooldowns are off, he goes in with a Rune Bomb, and then we've got the Dread Orb, and he's poking, and he really hasn't extended past this point in the map. This is still too loud, man. Game is ferociously loud right now. We're just gonna go down to 50. Patch is ruining everything. Production 10 out of 10, my friends. So yeah, he doesn't really have to cross further than this in order to get that safe poke, and he's already applying really nice damage. And you don't have to rush and get that immediate tower, but as you start to take down 1 to 2 towers, you slowly start to eke ahead of your team, and that's one of the advantages that is presented by that hero. What you're at risk from is stuns have double the value because you're 2 heroes in 1, and being locked down is extra risky. But this medic pairs so nicely with Cho'Gall in this matchup, where you see that shield coming out and it, nullifying a lot of the damage. It's a big health pool. So it's a really smart, really good synergy, and they're just constantly rotating between 2 lanes. The other thing that makes this composition work is Zagara in the bottom lane. Zagara actually is one of the best laners in the entire game. Obviously a top 2 laner when it comes down to it. Maybe Chen, Thrall, Zagara, probably the first 3 that I think of when it comes to the best laners in the game. And she's just going to have a lot of vision here, so she's going to be safe to hold this on her own while her allies continuously rotate between these 2. Cho'Gall, not only is he collecting a lot of gems, but he's poking continuously with Dread Orb and the Rune Bomb, and he's just being a menace. And he doesn't even need to necessarily rotate each and every single time. If he's like, you know what, we have a little bit of safety here in the top lane, don't have to worry about the rotations. He's going to put a little bit of an extra focus on getting that poke, and that's the exact right thing to do. Also controlling both the turn-ins. Yes, they basically conceded this bottom turn-in here because we see the blue team is getting a lot of gems in right now, and that's just because Zagara can't contest this on her own. This is a sacrifice they're making early game, so blue is going to get a lot of safe, easy turn-ins, but they have to get a total of 50 before they're actually going to get the Web Weaver. So there's no benefit of actually picking up these turn-ins unless you do successfully get the full turn-in. So it's not a big deal to give that up for the early game. You're going to want to regain control of that as the game progresses on, but not really all that impactful just yet. That is not okay. Apparently this UI that I'm using, this brand new UI, is actually, I can't even pull up talents. This is straight up the non-existent UI that I'm using. Esports, new to me. I forgot that was even a thing, that there's a UI without a UI. So we actually have to tab to look at the talents in this game. That is just tragic. They said they updated the default UI. Well, I guess not on old replays. Something new to experience here. Blazing Bulwark here. Again, this is just going to give you those block stacks. And then the Rune Bomb returns. Interesting talents picked up here. Gall going for the Spirit Onward, and then for double back. Once again, some of these talents have changed in this new patch, and Cho and Gall have both seen buffs pretty much across the board on these 2 heroes. But generally speaking, the style is something that you could look to mimic. You can see that Rune Bomb is just rolling for days, doing a lot of damage. Caterpillar actually taking a fair bit of damage himself here in the top, but Zagara has retained most of the control here in the bottom. Thrall has done a nice job. Like I said, he's very capable of laning against Zagara. You have to kind of wait for that moment, and then once you hit a wolf, you should try to charge him with Wind Fury and do as much damage as possible. But all things considered, they're finally whittling through these towers with this safe poke they've been doing in the top lane. Experience just slightly in their favor, but that will start to propel forward as they start to pick up more and more towers. Ammunition gone. They've had the presence here in the mid lane a little bit, but those ammunition is starting to recollect or replenish itself. And Cho'Gall is going to start taking a bit of damage. It's going to kind of speed things up just a little bit, as this game is kind of just pokey for the first half of the game until we start to get those first Web Weaver turn-ins. And you can see Cho continuing to poke on away. Creep spread, once they have more presence here in the other lanes, as Cho'Gall has just kind of been soloing in the top against the enemy team. We see Zagara starting to get a little bit more risky with the creep spread, just more bold with his placements of all those tumors, making sure he has more and more and more. The stun from the wolf or the root from the wolf does interrupt the channel here, but that is going to be the first turn-in of the game. This is where Cho'Gall becomes really extra scary. Now he's got these web weavers in the front line to really just kind of give himself all this coverage to poke behind, and they're worried about these big waves of minions. They're worried about the blast of waves that are coming out from the minions, and Cho'Gall is throwing continuous unlimited mana abilities out left and right, doing a lot of damage and displacing. And Cho, with the Surging Fist, can peel very well for Mittens and get out of a lot of bad situations with that ability on top of it. So here are the first Web Weavers. Cho'Gall not afraid to get into the face of the opponents, just throwing out every single ability he has. And we do have the nice spread soaking all 3 lanes. Vala tapping the well. Jim's playing a little bit more passively than the other members and getting back on out there. Medic always using those grenades for a little bit of additional damage and this Web Weaver is doing a ton of damage to the top, but it's very much the same. A lot of towers will go down, cementing a early level 10 here on the side of the red team based on the way the game is going so far. Great, not enough for the kill. The heal coming out from Lu. Is it enough to keep them all alive? Yes, Cho'Gall cannot contest any further, but Jaina dies in the mid lane. Jim just vaulting forward, throwing out the Hungering Arrow and picking up a nice kill, and that's going to be the fort going down. One fort down, already over a level lead with this Cho'Gall style. And, you know, this is the kind of situation where you might want to ask yourself, all right, I'm against Cho'Gall right now. Our team is against Cho'Gall, and Cho'Gall is bullying us in lane. How do we respond to this? And there's a few different approaches you can take on your team. So if you're on the side of the dinner excuse, which is our blue team here on the left, one thing that you could actually opt to do is just try to leave one member against Cho'Gall to soak. You just kind of, you know you're going to, the damage is imminent, right? You're already losing the lane. The damage is imminent. Just kind of concede it and then look for ganks. You have ETC and Thrall, and Jaina. That is more than capable of picking off enemy heroes. So looking for like quick rotations and sudden rotations down to Vala or Zagara in the bottom lane to try to pick off 1 to 2 heroes and force them to respond and soak the other lanes is one of the best things you can do in these kind of scenarios, because just kind of conceding that you're gonna get pushed in the top lane and trying to slow Cho'Gall down is just, it's delaying the inevitable. Cho'Gall is poking so safely. They're not getting the kills. They had so many members of the team just trying to stop him, and he's just kind of doing his thing. And sure, if you kill him, you get the 2 kills, and that's good, great, and grand, but he's a much harder target to kill than the other ones. He's got Surging Fist, he's got a sprint. So just find the Thrall, or the Zagara, and find the Vala. Kill one of those heroes. Force them to respond, because you have to remember, with Cho'Gall, you're spending 2 heroes in one body. So if you start to kill one member on their team, it's that much harder for them to figure out how to soak all 3 lanes in a safe manner without losing an advantage yourself. And that's the inherent weakness to Cho'Gall that you have to abuse. All right, let's get back on into this game. And bam, we do see that there is a very big difference in experience at this point in time. Yes, my overlay is ruining everything, and I apologize about that. I'm just going to blame Blizzard on it today. Middle fort taking a ton of damage already. You know, it says music's enabled, but I totes don't hear it. And we're going to see this middle fort go down very quickly. Some aggressive murking right now on the side of the dinner excuse. The blue team picking up this camp here, which is nice to just kind of get out in the battleground and do that right as level 10 is being reached. So they knew they weren't going to be below heroic abilities, but now we have to worry about upheaval with Shadowbolt Volley, Stim Drone, which is really good on Zagara, Vala. It's not bad on Cho'Gall, and Strafe as that last one. The thing about Stim Drone is it only affects Cho. Gall doesn't have auto attacks, but if you, and this is a upheaval build, so he doesn't have the ranged attacks. He will never have the ranged attacks, and he doesn't have the increased damage. So it doesn't have the best synergy, but upheaval connecting there. Jaina dies immediately. Strafe doing a lot of damage. Huge Strafe flanks, really just burning them down, and the bottom fort is conceded. They're just going to lose it here. Just again, their advantage very much ahead. No level 10, so blue team has to just kind of concede this, back away, soak to the best of their ability. They're doing just that, but the small victor here in the top lane, Thrall was able to get the turn in for their own Web Weavers. This is another point I would like to bring up on Tomb of the Spider Queen, just as a thing in general. Look at the situation. Web Weavers summoning. They're just about spawned here for the blue team, but they're down 2 levels. And basically what just happened is they just spent 50 gems, and they don't have enough for another turn-in. They have not enough. But this turn-in is going to get cleaned up so quickly. They can't really defend their Web Weavers that well without heroic abilities. Is it the wrong idea to turn in? Not necessarily, but you have to realize that when you turn in these situations, that the most it's going to do is buy you time for level 10. And it just always sucks to see that. Tickled the wall here. I mean, this one might get a tower. Thrall's going to die at this rate. Strafe doing a lot of damage. Thrall not able to throw any abilities out for the heals. No heroics. They can't do anything. Thrall's dead. Web Weaver's now getting some additional value because it was left alone. Yes, it got a tower. And this bottom Web Weaver making it through the wall. So really, at the end of the day, they only bought some time for level 10. Thrall will be back alive by the time these guys dissipate, and they can contest the turn-in, but it's still versus what the first web movers did, where they got all 3 towers. Like this is like a dramatic difference of use when it comes to the web movers due to the power spikes that exist in the game naturally. All right, ETC in the front line could look for that mosh pit. He is up there. He gets the mosh, but he gets mauled almost immediately. Really nice follow up, and then what? I completely forgot about that play. That was so cool. We got to go back down to normal speed. We see this mosh pit, but notice the positioning on Cho'Gall. He's gonna dive way forward. They get the kill on ETC in Surging Fist. So Maud just ended, and he is going to pull them back to safety in theory, but it's just going to get them off Medic. Medic's in a situation where it's kind of risky, and Cho'Gall can just now go to town. These guys can just follow up. They're already pretty low. You see the damage, the 7-sided strike being used, more or less whiffed, and that strafe with the ultimate value, gonna be enough for the kill. Shadowbolt volley, just the insurance policy at the end, and a beautiful fight here. And a lot of this just comes down to the fact that they just weren't expecting Cho'Gall. Like, the Cho'Gall style in general is working out beautifully for them. The Medic pairs so nicely. Even the Karazim against them hasn't gotten the value. Now that we're level 13, you should have gone for Molten Block. Yep, so as soon as you see that 7-sided strike on Cho'Gall, you just pop your Molten Block and you negate all of that damage, and you're going to be sitting pretty A-okay. And so far, I mean, you can't knock it. This Cho'Gall style with a strong laner, it's like those are the crucial elements. You've got Cho'Gall. Oh, Liam Sauls, thanks for the sub hype. Sorry for the loud sound, everyone. sub hype. And yeah, so we've got Cho'Gall as just the strong. He's the tank, but he's also the primary damage dealer. There's a lot of poke. Zagara is a strong laner, also with a lot of poke. The strafes are critical for getting a lot of the kills. Oh my goodness, pulling them through their walls and getting another kill. The Shadowbolt volley connecting on the minions, not enough for to get Raynor in that situation. And yeah, and Medic in the back to just keep everyone topped off. It's so hard for them to close the gap on Medic. The Maws have been fantastic all game long. And they're like on a death push already. They're just coming in here. They're pushing in on this keep. And they are doing a butt ton of damage. We can see Cho'Gall continuously poking with this. They're retreating, right? Oh, this is risky. This is risky. Some nice creep spread. Jim vaulting out of that blizzard. Power slide forward from Lou. Sundering goes out. This could be disastrous. A big Hyperion, but again, that Maw is there. 3-man Maw, absolutely clutch. Penetrating around to try to disengage, but Raynor dies either way. And the zoning blizzard is sufficient to force them to back away. The build so far with Blazing Bulwark, Rollback, Fire Eater, Upheaval, and Molten Block. And then we've got Spurred Onward, Double Back, Dark Descent, Shadowbolt Volley, and Rising Dread. 2 keeps down, a strafe to just be the icing on top. And they are on the core. Caterpillar not able to stick around for that. The desperate mosh pit being used. He's going to get blown up. That's a dead thrall. The rune bomb picking up the kill in GG. Cho'Gall, the first match of this entire tournament, translates into a victory in a very fun style. The reason I wanted to make this video is A, Cho'Gall in drafting is very interesting and very complex, and it's hard to predict. Cho'Gall can't be an early pick when you draft. If you're drafting in Hero League, you're drafting in a tournament, first picking Cho'Gall is 9 times out of 10 way too risky, and it's just not going to be worth it. We've seen it tried before, and it just about never works out. So you have to draft Cho'Gall late. Cho'Gall saw some big buffs, and Cho'Gall will be rising up, and we're going to start seeing him more often in tournaments. He's already being played in Korea. We saw him in a few matches in NA this weekend, and Cho'Gall is very much going to be a threat for competitive play. But you've got to understand that Cho'Gall needs to be a late pick in the drafts due to some of the counters that exist for this hero. So, very exciting game here that we had between the Dinner Excuse and T.Goons, I believe, were the 2 teams that played that. If you want to watch the actual VODs with actual commentary, they all exist on youtube.com/SolidJakeGG. You can follow, subscribe, do all of that great stuff here for my channels, and thanks for the support. We're now going to switch over and play some more Li Ming.